Rock and roll.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are happy you all made it out to the meeting despite some difficulties. We're going to get this started. It's 6:33 p.m. The first item on our agenda is updates on capital projects and state of good repair projects in the district. We have Nick Rollison from the MTA here to speak with us. Nick.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Whenever we get an opportunity to come speak about the good projects that we have going on, we're always excited to do that. So really appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to present remotely today. As you saw earlier, I have small children in the household, so having the opportunity to do this remote is really appreciated. Thank you. So just for the record, again, my name is Nick Rollison. I'm Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations for the MTA. I cover Brooklyn along with my friend Andrew Inglesby, who many of you may know from his previous tenure working with this community board. And just going to spend the next couple of minutes going through some major projects that we have going on right now at the MTA that will impact Community Board 14. And then I'm happy to stick around for a question and answer. Also, I always like to say that each of the things that I'm talking about today, I could talk about them for like an hour each. I won't do that tonight, but if there's any particular subject that we touch on tonight and the committee is interested in learning more, I'm always happy to come back, next month, whenever the next meeting is, to present on any of these topics, or any other topics in more in depth, or if we have a relevant project team, I'm always happy to bring them too. So with all that being said, I'm going to hopefully share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this? It should say Culver signal line. Okay, great. I see. Yep. Thumbs up. Thank you. So the way that I like to give these presentations about some major capital projects that we have going on in the different districts is by highlighting the web pages. The MTA website is a really great place for people to go to learn everything about the MTA. Obviously, if you go to the home page, you can see our current service status, where you can see why, if your train isn't showing up when you think it's supposed to be there, you can always check and see. You can plan your route, and you can see, we have bus time where you can track all of the buses. But for the purposes of this presentation, most importantly, is the MTA projects page, where you can see all the information about all of our major projects. Most of these pages have comment boxes or feedback portals where you could leave comments, or so that we have your feedback on all of these questions. So the first page that I'm going to bring your attention to is the Culver Line Signal Modernization page. So this is a project that we're working on right now on the F line, which I know is the western border of your district. We've been, for the last 4 years, we've been installing these new signals called CB14, computer-based train control. This is a new signaling system that is going to make the trains run faster and more efficiently. You may be familiar with this technology on the 7 and the L, where it's been implemented, and you can see in the customer satisfaction numbers, on-time performance, on a whole host of metrics, you can see that that installing CBTC dramatically improves performance and improves customer feedback. What I wanted to do was, let's see, hopefully you can see this animation here. Can you all see on my screen the legacy signaling slide that I have playing? No? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just.
It's still on the website.
Still on the website. Let's see if maybe it's because I'm not sharing the right screen. I think if I do this, you can see it.
Yeah, I can see that.
So there we go. I think it's just that I have to share my live screen. Okay, so I always love this animation because I think it's a really cool way of demonstrating how our modern signals work, how the old signals work, and how the new modern signaling will improve it. So if you look here on the screen, you can see that this is our legacy system for signaling. We call this fixed block signaling because, as you can see on the screen, the rails are broken up into literal blocks, and those blocks are anywhere, they're usually about 1,000 feet long, but they can vary depending where they are on the track. And the way that those signals work is that when a train is occupying a particular block, it turns the signal red. So all of the trains behind that train have to stop until the signal changes to yellow or green. So there are a lot of issues with this type of technology, aside from the fact that it's from the first Roosevelt administration. It causes a lot of technical issues on the rails. Most importantly is that when a train is in a tunnel, we don't know where the train is. We only know what block the train is on, right? So it's very hard to identify where particular trains are in the system at any given time. And then obviously, if there's any malfunction with any signaling equipment along the way, you could imagine how this could snowball into huge delays throughout the line, because if a signal is red when there's no train coming, obviously the trains can't proceed, even if there is no train. Many people, I'm sure, have been on a subway and the train is being held in the station, even though you know that you were standing at that station for the last 10 minutes and no trains came through. You know that track is clear, but if the block is reading a red signal, then obviously the train can't proceed. So you can see here, as the train moves along the line, it occupies a block. It turns that block red. There's a buffer space behind it, and then obviously it's green when the next train is allowed to come. Now, what are we doing? We're installing CBTC. This is a new signaling system where instead of reading the track, the trains talk to each other. They're all linked up to a computer using modern software, and our train traffic controllers can see where all trains are at all times, and it allows us to run trains. If you're familiar with the 7 or the L line, we can literally run trains every 30 seconds behind each other, because the trains are in constant communication about where they are, how fast they're going, et cetera, all of which our old signals cannot do. So that's just a really quick look at what CBTC does, the promise of it, why we're installing it on all of the lines throughout the system, why it's coming to the F line. And so you've probably been experiencing this for a while. A lot of people know that over the weekends we've been doing this work for signal modernization, and we've been terminating the trains, usually at Kings Highway, sometimes at Church Avenue, and we've had shuttle bus replacements over the weekend. So we are anticipating that this work is going to be finishing up this year, and hopefully those disruptions will become less and less as we get ready to turn CBTC on the F line. So again, you can always go to our webpage where you can see a little bit more information about what we talked about here. And then I would always draw people's attention to making sure that you're signing up for our service alerts and checking our planned service pages. That just gives you a heads up so that you know what changes are happening along your route before you leave the house. And then of course, as I mentioned, there's some feedback forms here that you can fill out. Okay, the next topic that we're going to discuss is station accessibility. You have 2 stations in CB14 that are coming. We have 18th Avenue, which I think is on the western border of your district on the F line. And then crucially, we have Church Avenue. We'll talk a little bit more about Church in a second. But just to give everybody a quick primer on station accessibility, accessibility is the name of the game here at the MTA. Everything we build, everything we touch from here on out becomes 100% accessible. Over the years, people have had concerns about the fact that many of our stations are inaccessible. And, we freely admit that we have inherited a system that is 100 years old that did not consider accessibility as it was being built. But this is a new day. And so we are committed, as you can see here, we have nearly $6 billion committed in the current capital plan to making sure that our stations are accessible. You can go to this page here, the Station Accessibility Upgrades webpage on our website, where you can learn more about accessibility in our capital program. You can get a list of every single accessibility project that we have in the works right now throughout the entire city. Here are some projects that we just recently completed. I think Avenue 8 should be on here, yes. And I love this little map here where you can actually track in real time the elevators that we're currently working on in this capital plan and the ones that have just been finished. So you should see Avenue H here, yep. And then we have Sheepshead Bay, we have 18th Avenue, we've got Church Avenue. So there's a lot going on, and we're very excited about it. Church Avenue is coming. You may have seen some action already happening there at the station. We are planning on, there is going to be a shutdown of that, a bypass of that station rather. We were originally anticipating that being in April. So that's why I had mentioned it in my notes, Sarah, but we're going to move that bypass until later in the summer. So it's probably looking like June or July, and I'll make sure to update the community board when we know the specific dates for that. But in order to install the new, Church Avenue is getting a pretty big facelift. We're basically installing a new station house over East 18th Street. And it's going to have the new house. It's going to have the elevators going up to the street level into the station house, and then obviously 2 staircases down into the platform. So it's going to be a pretty significant undertaking. And in order to do some of that installation, we're going to have a bypass of the station that's going to be in one direction. Passengers can always back ride, which means go past the station and then come back. But again, I'll highlight all of those service notes when we get closer to the actual bypass. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was our station renovation plan. So back in the old days, the only way that we could really upgrade a station was to put that station repair in the capital program. And obviously that would take lots of time. It was very time intensive. It required a lot of resources. But we've been conducting surveys throughout the system for the last 4 years, and station conditions are always at the very top of the list of issues that riders are concerned about. So because of that, we created this new initiative called the Station Renovation Program, where we basically go in when there's a service outage, if we're doing track replacement work or whatever the case may be. If we're bypassing the station on the weekend, whatever the case may be, and we're going in and we're basically just using all in-house materials and doing a very quick sweep of the station to make it cleaner, brighter, etc. The reason I'm mentioning this is because we've done this at a lot of stations, and you can go to the renovation page on the MTA website to learn more about stations that we have coming, stations that we've already done, learn a little bit more about the scope of what the renovations are doing. But really the crown jewel of this, I take great pride whenever we talk about this in the agency. I take great pride in the work that we did at Parkside. So Parkside was a renovation project that we did at the end of the year last year, where we basically revamped the whole station. I won't go through this whole presentation, but we redid the entire outside. You can see here we did a full painting, got rid of the graffiti up on the wall. We changed the lighting. Inside in the station house, you could see we refreshed the walls, the lighting again, the ceiling. We replaced the doors. We completely redid the station booth here. We again replaced the doors, fixed the odd tile that we had off there. Again, replaced and fixed the windows, replaced the staircase. And then I always like to show this slide where we repaired the entire tunnel, which is usually not in the scope of the renovations, but because of the scope of this one, we were able to accomplish it. So we're very proud of the work that we did here at Parkside. Hopefully people in the neighborhood are noticing the improvements. Hopefully people feel like the station is brighter and cleaner. But of course, we always welcome feedback, and we'd love to talk more about the conditions at any station if anybody has any concerns about any of those stations. I also wanted to talk very briefly about the Brooklyn Bus Network redesign. So this was a program that we launched. We launched the draft plan back in December of 2022. And basically what this is that we asked riders in the borough of Brooklyn, how do you feel about buses? And to nobody's surprise, riders told us that buses were late, they were not coming on time, they were running way too slow. And so we wanted to take a look at the whole bus network and propose some changes to the bus network so that we could deliver a service that customers would be more excited about taking. A lot of these bus routes are following old trolley lines. Some of these routes haven't been updated in 50 years. So Brooklyn has changed a little bit in the last 50 years. And so we wanted to make sure that we were designing a network that responded to the needs of Brooklyn today. And so you can go on our Brooklyn Bus Network redesign webpage here at the website. There is a lot of information here that I'm not going to go through today, but crucially, you can review the draft plan here, which I would encourage everybody to do. And you can review your local or express bus routes right here, where you can see what changes we're making, if any, to the route that you use or the route that you're particularly concerned about. We have interactive maps here where you can see the whole plan basically on like a Google map, and you can drop a pin and leave comments. So please, we encourage everybody to do so. Over the last few months, we've been doing an aggressive public outreach campaign where we went to major bus stops, supermarkets, parks. We were everywhere that we could be collecting feedback from this plan. And I will be the first to tell you that we heard from people that in some of our proposals, we totally missed the mark, which is fine. That's why we call it a draft plan. I will say that there's a lot of proposals in the draft plan that people really loved, and we were very excited to see that. So where are we today is that we're still collecting feedback. If people want to take a look at the proposals and provide feedback, they can. Later this year, we're going to come out with, we're calling it the proposed final plan. It's basically the next draft of the proposal, and so next draft of the proposal. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take all the comments that we've received, and we've gotten over 10,000 comments. We're going to take all those comments, we're going to apply it to the plan, and our bus planners are going to say, okay, this proposal here didn't really work. Maybe we'll take that back. There seems to be a real desire for connections here that we didn't address. So we're basically going to take another look at the plan with all the feedback we got from the public and come out with a new proposal. And that proposal, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come out to the supermarkets and the subway stations. We'll come to the community board. We want to make sure that the public has a chance to see this proposal, comment on it before any of this gets implemented. And hopefully, once we get through the next phase of the plan, we can talk about implementation and hopefully deliver a bus network that is faster and more reliable for passengers. And lastly, I wanted to speak a little bit about the Interborough Express. If you're not familiar with this, this is a proposal from the MTA to basically reactivate passenger rail on an existing freight corridor that exists right now that connects Brooklyn and Queens. Hopefully you can see this on my screen here. You can see this blue line. There's this freight line here. Right now, the southern half of this freight line is owned and operated by Long Island Railroad. They contract with New York and Atlantic. And then the Queens section of the line is owned by CSX. We're very excited that the governor has put in the last two State of the State addresses, she's been putting this project high up on her priority list. We've been getting a lot of funding and support from her. So we're very excited. We just did a series of open houses. We were in Sunset Park. We were at Brooklyn College back in November. We also went to Queens, a couple locations in Queens, and we got a lot of feedback from members of the community about how this line would impact their life, where they would like to see stations, and so on and so forth. Obviously, it's no secret that people want to make connections to all of the existing MTA infrastructure. The way that I always like to describe it is with my hand. Our system was built where all of these, outer borough lines are going into Manhattan, but there's nothing that connects the fingers, right? So this would be a great example of a project that we could implement that would shave so much time off of people's commutes. Our research has found that a lot of people are trying to make connections between Brooklyn and Queens, and going through Manhattan is obviously not the most efficient way to do that. So we're very excited about the promise of this. Right now, we're just going out, giving presentations. We're about to start the environmental review of this. The environmental review process will take a look at considerations like existing infrastructure, where stations are going to go, basically anything and everything that you could think of is what the environmental review process is going to study. And then we'll come back to the community with a final proposal where, once everything is set in stone, then we can start, talking about, moving forward with this project. So we're very excited about that. So that's a very quick rundown. Hopefully that was quick. I think that was, I think I kept that to 30 minutes. That was a quick review of some of the major projects that we have going on in CB14. Again, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about some of these exciting projects. I'm happy to stick around for a Q&A. As always, you can reach me anytime. I'll put Sarah knows how to find me, but I'll put my information in the chat. I'm always happy to answer any questions or present on any topic relating to anything MTA related. So thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. I believe if Sarah already has your contact information, if anyone has any questions after we do the Q&A, we'll just send it to the info@CB, and then we'll forward them over. All right, thank you very much for presenting. Let's go with questions. If folks don't mind, if you could just raise your hand, and then I'll call on people. Corazon, go ahead.
No, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say, definitely noticing the upgrades to Parkside Avenue station and saw when it was happening. It's really awesome just to see it. So just thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Next up is Florencia.
Good evening. Thank you for the information. Just a quick question. In terms of the trains communicating with each other, if the system is hacked, is there a manual override? Just asking.
I'm not an expert on the security of the technology. I don't think there's ever been an incident, but it's all routed through the rail control center. So if there was ever any issue with the computer, rail control center could override anything that was happening on the train, and those trains can continue to operate even with the signaling issues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Liz.
Hey, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm really excited for the signal upgrades to get more reliability. I guess I just kind of always been curious when people bring up the bus redesign, if there's sort of a similar push to getting more reliable buses in there too, because I know no one ever wants to potentially lose the bus stop near them, but there are lots of duplicated lines along parallel streets in Brooklyn, and consolidating some of them might make the buses more reliable, working with DOT to get more bus lanes and other, features of the street to make sure that the bus isn't held up is also really important. And I was just kind of wondering if there's any insight that you can kind of provide and how much sort of those ideas are going to be prioritized. I obviously want to make sure that no one loses access to anything, but, I think people have been waiting a really long time for this, and also that there's just a lot, don't want to have to keep redoing the bus lines over and over and over and over again, potentially forever. I'm sure you're trying to do everything the MTA can to get it right, but just if there's a little more insight, because it's been a while in that process. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we could talk for hours just about that question. Bus reliability means so many different things, right? There's so many different ways that you could tackle that problem. One of which is the bus stop spacing. You'll see in the plan that we have a very aggressive plan of removing bus stops so that buses can move quicker. Right now, we have the shortest distance between bus stops of any major city in the United States. And so we're trying to address that. Obviously, we always like to say, the most important bus stop to you is the bus stop that you take every day, right? And so if we are proposing to eliminate the bus stop, right in front of your house or at your corner or at the supermarket that you go to, whatever the case may be, obviously that's going to generate a lot of conversation, and we're willing to have that conversation, right? I think that we've been doing a pretty good job of having a back and forth with the community in terms of making sure that we strike that balance between letting our buses run as fast as they can versus making sure that we're providing, the service in the community that people are expecting. So that's a constant conversation. I always encourage people to leave feedback. Please review our plans. And if there's a bus stop where we're proposing to eliminate that you disagree with, let us know. If there's a bus stop you think we could eliminate that we didn't suggest, please feel free to let us know that too. So it's a continuing ongoing conversation. You mentioned bus priority. Obviously, we're always excited to work with our colleagues at New York City DOT. You know, I always tell people, we run the buses, they run the road, right? So if they have a proposal where you know, they want to make changes to the road that's going to allow us to operate our buses faster, safer, more efficiently, et cetera, we're always about that. You know, we're always excited to work with them on projects like that. So, you know, that's just a very brief overview of all of the things that we're working on for reliability. But yes, reliability is, you know, top concern of why we're doing this in the first place. Thank you.
And just to piggyback off that, and then I'll go to Joel. You mentioned this before, but when is the MTA going to release the new revised like draft plan for the Brooklyn Bus Network?
I don't have a specific date yet, but it's going to be later this year. Right now, the Queens bus network redesign is they're taking the, you know, they're going to the community boards for their final proposal. So right now, all of our bus planning staff is working on Queens. Once Queens is finished, then we're going to come back to Brooklyn for the proposed final plan for Brooklyn. So we're thinking, you know, second half of 24.
Okay, thank you. Joel, go ahead.
Nick, thank you so much for your presentation. These projects all sound great. They really do sound great. And my plan is to contact you because, not entirely unrelated to the bus stop issue, the plans for the express buses BM1, 2, 3, and 4 are, in my opinion, off the mark. So I don't know.
You're talking about the routing on Cortelyou versus Beverly?
That's one part of it. Yes, I think that you're eliminating all your ridership. It's like you want to serve some other ridership, and not to mention that Beverly is so much more narrow than Cortelyou, and that the buses do move down Cortelyou. I take it every day. Obviously, I'm an interested, or biased interested person on this. But also in Manhattan, if you're going to go up Water Street, this also defeats your ridership who get off on Church Street, who go to either Trinity Place or Liberty, or where I get off at Barclay. I'm not walking from Water Street. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And I love the bus. I love the bus. I love the express bus. Happy to pay the money in my old age here. And I just, in fact, my office is at Broadway and VC Street, and now I walk to the Battery to get the bus to go home. You know, at the last stop before it goes in the tunnel. Because if you get on the bus near me, winding through Manhattan to go down is very long thing. But so I walk. I get a little more exercise, and I take it. But again, if you're on Water Street, it don't work. So.
Joel, we really appreciate this, but if we can focus on issues that are broadly, and then we are happy to relay any specific communications about specific lines to Nick. Definitely.
Sarah went to the Sean School of Media.
All right, next
anyway,
week.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say very quickly that speaking of Sean, she let us know very clearly her opinion of our proposals of the BM1, 2, et cetera. So it's a concern that we've heard. I think that we've been having an active conversation with our road operations team as well about this. Obviously, these proposals are just trying to make sure that our buses aren't getting caught at very awkward left-hand turns, but I hear you 100%. It's something that's come up a lot. And as we said, this is a conversation, and hopefully, you know, when we come out with our revised proposals later this year, hopefully there'll be some good things for you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Corazon, I see your hand still up. Has it gone up a second time, or is that just lingering?
Yes, that's a new hand.
Go ahead.
So from the response that you were giving, Liz, a question came up in my mind, or a question comment. Were the bus stops originally designed to be close together for like ADA compliance or for something like that? Because that was the impression that I was under, that it was to help for people who couldn't necessarily walk the same distances that they could if it was on a train or something like that.
That's a good question. I can't say all bus stops. Many bus stops were not implemented with accessibility in mind. basically, a lot of these bus stops have been put in over the years by request of the community or whatever the case may be. As I mentioned, a lot of these routes are, 50, 60, 70 years old. So as stops keep getting added and removed, that's sort of how you get this proliferation of stops, because people wanted the bus to stop at this location. They wanted the bus to stop at this location. Obviously, there are accessibility concerns when you consider bus stop placement. And we're very excited to be working with DOT to make sure that, that the proposals that we're putting out are ensuring access to accessible bus stops throughout the entire system. So that's just a quick overview of accessibility with the bus stops.
Thanks, Nick. Let me just jump in and ask a question, and then I'm going to go to Nina. I know you said you're going to provide an update on the revised date for the Church Ave accessibility project's bypass work. I assume you don't have that date now, obviously, otherwise you would have told us it, but I just want to emphasize the importance of getting to us at least, I don't know, a few months before it actually happens, because we already announced an update to the board last year on the timing, and that, we want to make sure we give people as much advance notice as possible. And then the other thing I just wanted to ask about is the CBTC technology. How does the MDA decide on what lines get them or what line get priority? So why, for example, the F and as opposed to the Q, or does the Q have already? I have no idea.
Yeah, so those are all great points. On Church Avenue, I hear you. And as soon as I have a confirmed date for when we're going to consider starting that bypass, I'll let you know immediately. We understand that this is like a major station for the community. And so we want to make sure we get the word out there quickly and as early as possible so that there's as little disruption at the station. Regarding CBTC, there are a number of factors here. Funding is a big concern. The next project that was supposed to be started already was going to be the Fulton CBTC on the AC, the Fulton line in Brooklyn. But unfortunately, we delayed that project because of the pending litigation with congestion pricing. We need that money from congestion pricing to proceed with that project. So funding is a big consideration. There's also, the age of the signals. We're doing the G train. I don't know if people have read about that in the papers lately, but we're doing the G train. And that the G train, I think, has the oldest signals in the system. I was talking about those signals from the first Roosevelt administration. That's the G train right there. So the age of the system also comes into play. The reliability of the line also comes into play. Ridership numbers. So there's a whole matrix that our capital planning team looks at when deciding what projects get higher up on the list or get built first.
I see. So when, like, every year, at least for the past maybe 3 years, the queue has been undergoing or shut down for some portion or another, for weeks or sometimes months at a time. And whenever I look up the reason, it says like signal improvements. It doesn't sound like that's CBTC changes. It's just the latest, just some random updates here and there. All right.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's true. I mean, as I mentioned in the presentation, these signals can get fried pretty frequently. They're constantly have to get upgraded. We've been doing a lot of the this weekend or overnight work on the queue where it gets split into 2 sections. That might be what you're referring to. That's mostly like track maintenance, where we have to, track maintenance is, I tell people all the time, it's ongoing and as needed. Because we always constantly have to replace and repair our tracks because they're getting used so often. And obviously we want to make sure that the tracks are safe for trains to ride along. So we hear you, and I'll be the first one to let you know when the Q line is going to get CBTC, and we'll be very excited for it.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Thank
I promised Nina, and then Florencia. We'll probably take maybe a total of 3 more people so we can move on to the next subject. So Nina, then Florencia after that.
First of all, thank you. Some really exciting things happening. Here in the neighborhood, we refer to the chronic shutdown, especially on weekends with the Q train, and the fact that there's no B as Q-mageddon, just so you know. We are not happy. going back to the whole accessibility issue, you know, very nice that they put ramps at Avenue H. They're not helpful for people on crutches or who don't have electric wheelchairs. I can't understand why there is no elevator at Newkirk. It's a much bigger station, and there is a bus there which runs between Brookdale Hospital and the VA. It seems like a really, really necessary place to make some accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that feedback, and we're always looking forward to hearing from the public where they would like to put it. Just to give you a little context as to how, if you look at a map, if you look at the accessible station map and you look at our upcoming projects, you'll notice that we try to, right at the moment, we're trying to make it so that you never have to go more than 2 stations for an accessible station. So if you look at the map, you can kind of see, you know, you'll see 1 station, then it'll skip 2, and then it'll be another station. That's not a universal trend, but that's generally what we try to do. So right now we're doing Church Avenue, and then, you know, the ultimate goal here is to make the system completely accessible. There are a few stations where it's literally impossible to put an elevator at the station. I'm thinking of York Street on the F train, for instance. But the ultimate goal of our accessibility program is that if a station can have an elevator or, you know, ADA access, we're going to put that in the station. It might not come this capital plan, but it will come, you know, in the future.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank
Florencia, your hand went down. You no longer have a question?
Yeah, my hand went down because he already said that am I correct in that you said that the Q train will be considered for the CBTC?
Yes, the plan is to put this system in the entire network, but we obviously have to install it line by line.
Okay. No,
Right,
because
then-
they do have high ridership, so just wanted to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's 7:10, so the last question I'm giving to Liz.
Hey, hopefully this is pretty quick. You know, one of the things that, you know, Nina was kind of speaking about, like, expected changes to the queue, and one of the things I think we also deal with a lot on the BQ line is unexpected changes, particularly from fallen trees onto the tracks. And I was wondering if there's anything the MTA is doing to try to remediate this problem more long term. You know, I think people obviously love their trees, and you know, I think we all love the tree line nature of this neighborhood. But you know, just wondering if there is any efforts towards that, because I know it's very disruptive, especially when you have to go all the way down to Coney Island and then come back up a different line. So thanks.
Yes, that is a great question. I hope everybody survived those high winds that we had last Monday, because we had I think we had 6 trees fall on the Brighton line at that time. This was one of those things that you don't think about, but when you're starting at the job, I never thought I would have to deal with so many tree issues, but here we are. I always tell people that the T in the MTA does not stand for tree. We are a transportation agency, and so we contract out for tree removals. We have a maintenance of way division. Their entire responsibility is to make sure that the right of way is clear for trains, which obviously on the Brighton line has a very distinct mission of making sure that there are no tree branches on the line. That being said, maintenance of way works with contractors, but you have to consider we have 472 stations across the entire city, and so we basically go to conditions on the severity of the case. Right now, in a situation like last week where there was so much wind that we lost so many trees, obviously maintenance of way basically has been camping out there, removing trees off the line and clearing trees where we can. But there's so many trees, it would be impossible, and I don't think people would want us to just blanket remove a whole bunch of trees from the line, right? So we do it by a tree by tree basis. The more likely it is to fall, the more if the tree is dead, for instance, or the more likely it is to fall, we will remove those. But as I'm sure everybody here knows, since we're in the cut, we have trees above us that are not on our property. And that's a huge problem because we can't remove trees that we don't own, right? We don't have the authority to just walk into somebody's backyard and take the tree out. So we always rely on support from the community board and our local residents to, you know, if maintenance of way is particularly concerned about a particular tree, we would always go out and, you know, try to work with the homeowner to see if we could get, you know, the tree at least, you know, pruned back, if not completely removed. But it's a serious issue that we deal with on a daily basis. It seriously impacted service. I think service was out for 3 hours because of those trees that Monday. So it's something we take seriously. It's a case by case basis. If there's a tree that you're particularly concerned about, reach out to me and I can you know, flag that for the appropriate people.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for your questions.
Thank you, everybody.
Are now going to move on to the next presentation. I'm going to hand it over to my co-chair, Joel. Nick, thank you very much for coming. You do not have to stick around, but we appreciate you taking the time to come speak with us. Joel, go ahead.
Thank you, Nick. That was great. So our next guest, Jolise, is that how you pronounce your first name? Great.
Yes.
We have Jolise Race here from the Riders Alliance to talk about the Fair Fares program. Maybe you, and thank you for coming. Maybe you could first just tell us a little bit about Riders Alliance.
Yeah, so my name is Jolise Race. I am one of the senior organizers at Riders Alliance. We are a grassroots organization made up of subway and bus riders. We fight for more affordable, reliable, accessible transportation. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to y'all today about some of the work that we are doing, particularly around fair fares. It would be great for you all to just like know some of the stats happening in your district in relation to fair fares, and we can talk about maybe how to get some of those resources out. And I also just wanted to share a couple other things that we are working on or have one already that also will pertain to your neighborhoods. I do have a presentation. I think I was told like 15 minutes for the presentation, 15 for Q&A. So is that still good?
Sarah gave you the thumbs up. That means
Yes, and I've also given you host, so you should be able to share your screen, and if you're not, just let me know.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I don't really use WebEx, but I'm sure I can figure this out. Let's see.
Little button with a square and an arrow at the bottom next to your stop video sign.
I see that. I was just like looking at, okay, here we go. So I will start at the, is this?
Yes.
beautiful.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, Riders Alliance, we've been around for a little over 2 years or 10 years, since 2012. And yeah, we fight for better public transportation in the city. And these are some of the rider wins that we've had. I'm going to be talking about fair fares today. I'll talk a bit about buses and our 6-minute service campaign. But I'm not going to go too into this slide because I'll be talking about this stuff throughout the presentation. But these are just some of the things that we've won, such as fair fares, congestion pricing, better buses, emergency, federal funding, and 6-minute service, just to name a few. So these are some stats that I like to share with folks when it comes to transit, just in general in New York City. So, you know, we have 70% of public transit riders are folks of color that suffer longer commutes than their white counterparts. 40% of essential workers take the bus. 55% of bus riders are immigrants. New York City has the slowest buses in the country, despite having the highest ridership. And only 1/4 of our trains are accessible, which I know the MTA presentation also touched on that. But I think the reason why these stats are really important to just sort of know is that like public transportation really is a social justice issue. It's a racial justice issue. It's an immigrant justice issue, essential worker justice. So, you know, you have people working in healthcare. It's an accessibility justice issue and also like a gender issue as well. So So when we're talking about public transportation, like these are the types of folks that we know that it really is impacting the most. So these are some of the community board 14 numbers that I just wanted to present a bit in starting the conversation about fair fares. So we have total workers 16 years and over. 74,000 folks are taking public transportation to work, and 19,000 are either driving or carpooling. So just looking at like, these are the people that are taking public transit. Like this is the amount of people taking public transit according to the census in your neighborhoods. And in your neighborhoods, your median household income is 66,652, and 24% of those households is where the income is less than 30% of that number, which I did the math, and so that's 15,996. So 24% of folks in your districts are making $15,000 a year. And then the total population, 146,472, 41% of those folks are foreign born. And going back to the ADA accessibility that you all listened to and talked about earlier, so 8.6% of folks in your district live within a quarter mile of an ADA accessible subway station. So that's not a lot. You know, so that like just really points also to the issue of how we need more accessibility. But yeah, these are just some statistics regarding your district and your community board. And so, so the Fair Fares program is a city program that offers half-price Metro cards to New Yorkers living at or below 120% of the federal poverty level. Years ago, we won Fair Fares, and we won it at 100% of the federal poverty level. And in 2023, we sort of like relaunched and revamped that campaign. We were aiming to get it to 200% of the federal poverty level. And the mayor did increase, he increased the program by $20 million, and then increased the eligibility to 120. So we did get a win there, and it is impacting folks across the city and in your districts. But we still, you know, we still want to see that 200%. But right now we got the 120, which, you know, we'll take. And, you know, because especially living in New York, like something that's at or below like the federal poverty line, like, you know, that's going to be so low compared to New York City. Like we all know how expensive it is to live here. So, you know, basing it on a federal number, it just doesn't totally apply to like New York City, as, you know, I'm sure everyone can, you know, understand that as we're all here paying for things. So with the new 120% that we won in 2023, these are the numbers that that you see here. These are the incomes that folks need to make to be eligible for Fair Fares with this new increase. So if you're a household of one, you need to make $18,072 or less to apply for a half price card. And you can see all the way up to a family of 8. So for a family of 8, you need to make $63,264 or less to get a half price Metro card. And like, I mean, looking at these numbers, it's like, you know, it's shocking, like, to even imagine having a household of 8 and like making $63,000 a year. Like, that's crazy for me to imagine. I'm sure it is for most people on the call. So like, this is why it's really important that we continue to fight to increase the eligibility to at least 200%, which is the number that we're at right now. Well, we're fighting for right now. We're at 120 right now. And another thing to mention is that this program isn't being totally utilized at this point. So all of the folks that are eligible for this program are not receiving the resources because they haven't signed up to do so. So that's another reason it's really important for us to be talking to folks like you, so that you can help spread the word that this program exists. And, you know, we really also need to put pressure on the city to make sure that they're doing more outreach to make sure that folks know this program exists, because this is something that can really certainly like help families or individual people, you know, manage their finances with having to just pay half price for their fare. So I wanted to include this. So the New York City Speaker Adams, she was a champion for this last campaign to increase the eligibility. And this is just a tweet that she posted, you know, saying that she outlined the need to continue expanding fair fares eligibility to 200% of the federal poverty level. So we know that she sees us and she's with us. It's just like a matter of really getting the mayor to do that. So we'll see where we're at the next budget season. But yeah, so we do know that we have people that do understand like that we need the 200% at least. And then you can see the difference in numbers here that are between like if you're at 100% of the federal poverty level or at 200%. So it's like, you know, it's a really huge difference, and it would impact so many, you know, millions and millions of people more, like to just expand this to 200%. And I'm so sorry, I have to plug my computer in, so hold on one second. Okay, luckily my charger was already plugged in and right by my computer. Sorry about that. Okay, so that is, yeah, that's fair fare. So you can see some of these numbers. They're pretty staggering. And yeah, we basically want to keep fighting for the 200%, but we have the 120 right now, and we really need to get the word out. This is, when I was talking a little bit earlier when I was introducing myself, our 6-minute service campaign that we won last year. So we basically ran a state budget campaign asking for 6-minute service on trains and buses. We did not win that entirely, but we won a lot of really awesome stuff in the state budget last year. We won increased subway service on the G, J, M, C, N, R, and already said C. And then this summer, these are the trains where we'll see increased service. We reduced the fare hike from $3 to $2.90, which was really awesome. And then we also fought for the free bus pilots in the 5 boroughs. I don't know if anyone here is using the free B60, but we were really happy to see that program get pushed through. And so for this state budget, we are asking, you know, even more for buses. Since we didn't get any service increases, we are asking for 45 million in bus frequency and reliability, and then another 45 to expand the free bus pilot to 15 buses throughout the boroughs. So it would expand from having 1 bus in each borough to having 3 buses in each borough that would be free. We really are seeing a lot of people benefiting from the free bus programs, and it's something that we want to continue fighting for, as well as always continuing to fight for, you know, an increase in frequency and reliability on buses, because we know that there's a really big problem with reliability and buses. As I stated, New York City has the slowest buses in the entire nation, moving at about 8 miles per hour in traffic. So it's pretty bleak. Another thing I wanted to mention in building better buses is the streets plan, which is a law that mandates the mayor implement 150 miles of bus lanes and busways throughout the city to speed up those slow buses that, you know, we've been mentioning. He should have, you know, if he was following the law, he should have implemented at least 50 miles up to this point, but the current number of miles completed at this point is less than 10. So he really is not prioritizing, you know, bus riders, you know, better bus infrastructure, you know, and those same folks that I talked about at the beginning who we know are the folks taking the bus. So that's the streets plan just briefly. And as part of the streets plan, the mayor and DOT did identify. Can you see like me moving the screen like around that I can see?
No, we can just see your actual slides.
Okay. So part of the so DOT and the mayor like identified Flatbush Ave in its list of priority projects that would, you know, go into the streets law that I just talked about. So we are looking a lot on Flatbush Ave to increase bus speeds there. So increasing buses on Flatbush Avenue would serve 118,000 average daily bus riders on 12 different routes. So that's like a huge number of people. And of all the residents living along Flatbush Avenue, which are the community boards listed here, 76% are commuting via public transit, walking or biking. 67% of the bus riders are female. 78% are people of color. 55 are immigrants. So like, you know, these are the folks that we're really looking at when we want to improve bus speeds, especially on Flatbush. These are specifically the folks that we are talking about. And we have been holding community meetings, you know, to gather feedback and to ask residents about the issues that they're encountering while commuting on Flatbush Ave. We have been doing at least one weekly canvassing shift to engage in outreach to bus riders along the corridor. And, you know, this is like where we're really hearing, you know, the nitty gritty of the things that people are experiencing on Flatbush Ave when it comes to buses, which is like slow, unreliable bus service and, you know, overcrowding. And, you know, we're talking about like nurses coming home from Kings Plaza. You know, in this slide that, you know, I think it was like 41% of folks living within your board are foreign born. So you know that those folks are taking the buses to go to English classes, using the other social justice, you know, organizations in the neighborhoods to get resources. You know, these are just the working class people that are really keeping the economy going. And yeah, so that's basically what I have for you. I know I would love to answer any questions about fair fares. I'd love to hear if anyone has ideas of how we can work together to make sure folks in your districts know about the program. I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing. Okay, got it.
There you go. All right, we have some hands. I have a question first. How many people have gotten fair fare cards?
So far, I want to say maybe it's a million something. I don't want to say the wrong answer, but
1 million people.
It's well over 1 million people, yeah.
And what would you say your target is?
Well, our target would be, I don't know the exact number, but the target would be like literally every single person in the city living at or below the 120% of the federal poverty level.
And what do you think that would be? How many people? How many people are we? 8 million?
It actually might have been in the slide. Hold on one second. Okay, yeah, so it was in the slide.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I don't have the
I can
numbers.
actually give you an answer if you would like. It
I
seems
can
that
just
about
pull-
4 million New Yorkers live at 200% of the income level or below, of the poverty line or below. So it's
So is
about,
that like, that's what's like a half the
Yeah, and so
population?
this slide shows like how much. So like at 200% of the federal poverty level, it would impact 300 million or 3 million people. At 100%, it's 1.64 million.
So at 200%, it would be like 3 million people.
Right. So at
So
120, I'm not sure exactly, but
So you've captured about a third of the people.
I would say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I saw Steve and I saw Nina have their hand. I don't know who went up first. Let's go to Steve. He hasn't asked anything tonight. Steve, are you there? You know what? We'll come back to Steve. Nina?
Hi, thank you very much for all of this information. Something I'm just wondering, if it's been considered, you brought up the fact that there are a couple of free bus lines. Way back in the early 1960s in Denver, in order to decrease car traffic into the central business district, they instituted free buses that you could just hop on and off of and go to all the stores in that area. And it was incredibly successful, and it was a car-free zone. So the buses were not competing with traffic at all. And so people could cross streets. It was all pedestrian and buses. And I wonder, given this whole push for congestion pricing, if there'd been any thought to adding, let's say, free shuttle buses that will run through some of these major business areas. I'm thinking, Times Square, the Grand Central Station area, and so forth, Madison Square Garden area. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. So I think what we're calling for right now in relation to what you're speaking about is not necessarily free shuttles around Manhattan or around the business district where congestion pricing will take place. But we're really focused a lot on the outer boroughs because those are the places that congestion pricing is going to impact the most, are those places in Queens and Brooklyn where, folks are living really far away from trains and have to take a bus to get to a train. So we're really pushing for a lot of the money from congestion pricing to, yes, go towards making more of the stations accessible, which we really need congestion pricing money to do that. And we're also asking for 90 million of that money to go towards increasing bus service. And then, so 45 to increase bus service and the other 45 to do the to increase the free bus pilot. So those are the two things that we're asking for right now in terms of buses with the congestion pricing money. And that is Assembly Member Mamdani's bill that he is working on, and we're supporting him on that.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, are you with us? You got your hand up? Anyone else? Thank you for that presentation. It's very interesting, and appreciate your advocacy for the constituents who need, I mean, we all need better public transportation, but the people who, just can't afford things, it's good that we have people like you, fighting for them. Sarah, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a question. So from my understanding, most of the how people sign up for fair fares is either through HRA or sometimes like council members or state reps will have buses visit and have it as hers. So is this something does Riders Alliance also help people sign up for fair fares? Is there a way that our board and our office can help get the word out? Is it best, in your experience, to do it at one of these pop-up events that happens, to do it through HRA? And is it being presented at HRA offices when people go in for food stamps or whatever else that they have to deal with? Is this something that's can be automatically tacked on, or is there a separate application process that people have to apply for?
It is a separate application process. HRA is the way that you would sign up for fair fares. We do not sign people up for fair fares, which is kind of confusing for some folks because we pushed for the program and won the program. But it's basically the city is responsible for making sure that folks know about this program. So that's kind of why we want to get in touch with community boards and other groups in communities to make sure that y'all know that this exists, so that if what was, at least a quarter of people living in, within Community 14 district is making $15,000 a year. So it's how can y'all help reach those folks? And I don't know if it's in, getting in touch with your electeds, making sure that, they're promoting the program when folks come into their office or with their newsletters. I think it's good for y'all just to know that this exists and to be able to guide folks to the HRA website, if that makes sense. And we have literature that we could give you to post, to hand out, that basically is just fair fares, it exists, sign up, go to at this website. So we have that sort of outreach, but not outreach, we have that sort of material that we can give you for outreach if you wanted it.
Well, Sarah, we could have that at our table at meetings, right?
Yeah, we can definitely come up with ways to help spread the word and distribute information about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be really important.
I do see signs on subways about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are.
Yeah, they do some outreach. They haven't been great about it. So we're pushing to make sure that some of the funding they did win is going to go towards outreach. But yeah, that's why it's just really important for us all to be in communication with each other, so that you all know that this program exists for the folks that are coming to you.
Corazon, you got your hand up.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you have any literature or outreach information that's in other languages besides English.
For fair fares, we do. Yes. I don't know I don't know exactly which languages they are. I think Spanish, Mandarin. I'd have to check our stock to see what languages we have.
Thank you, because I'm thinking about Haitian Creole as well.
Okay.
Last chance for Steve. Steve, are you there? He's off doing something. So
yeah,
there you go.
Sorry, my audio dropped for a little bit, so I'm not sure if this question was already answered, but I was just wondering what was the basis for the 200% going from 120 to 200, what that was linked to. Thank you.
I'm not sure who came up with that number. I think like that just felt like an appropriate and winnable number for us to increase the program. Does that answer? I don't know if I understood your question totally.
Well, I guess my assumption was, 200% was linked to, you said, New York City compared to federal. So is there like something showing that like New York City, it's like twice as expensive as the federal, and that's why we're going from 120 to 200 compared to the poverty level? I'm just trying to understand why that number.
I think no, I don't think it was like as cut and dry as that. We talked a lot with our members about what they felt like a reasonable number would be to increase it by when we started that campaign up again. And like we have some members that are just like, public transit should just be like entirely free for everyone. And then we had folks saying like, if you are a single person making $50,000 a year, you should still get a half price Metro card. So like we had folks a lot of people like going really high up of like what they really think that New Yorkers deserved. But then, like as advocates, like we had to pick a number that we felt was winnable. Which of course, like it would be great if everyone, like if every single person that made $50,000 or less like had a half price Metro card. In my opinion, that would be great. But like that's definitely not something like we could win from the city. So I think we talked to our membership a lot and like other stakeholders. And that's how we came up with the 200%. We were like, this is a reasonable number that we could ask the city to increase it by. And yet the mayor still didn't do it. But we'll continue to fight for that 200%.
Thank you.
Okay, Nina, you still got your hand up. Is that from before?
Sorry, I thought I had put it down. Did it go back up? I'll fix.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, I see. Sorry, Liz.
No problem. I just ran a couple of quick numbers because I was curious about the answer to Steve's question a little bit. And for the federal poverty level, if you're making 200% of it, if you're a single household, that number around $30,000 a year works out to you're spending like 5.2% of your income on if you're getting a monthly pass every month. And of course, we know that a lot of people, fortunately Omni has fare capping, but we know that a lot of people who are on the, who don't have as much income are less able to spend all that money up front. And for a household of two, where the federal poverty level is around $40,000, you're spending like 7.7% of your like just gross income on on that same kind of amount of transit, which just seems extremely high, especially knowing people are likely also rent burdened or severely rent burdened, both within our district. We know that's a big issue, and just thinking about how that's that just doesn't leave a lot necessarily for of course food and other things too. I guess to me, I was also kind of wondering what those numbers were, but kind of seeing it that way, that just feels like a really big percentage of income to be spending on public transit. And so I can see kind of the value. I can see how 200% really, does make sense in this context. Just my 2 cents. Just wanted to give that information because those numbers are kind of abstract otherwise. Thanks.
I appreciate you looking those up and sharing it with the group. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. I want to thank you again for that really great presentation and alerting us to the various issues that you're engaged in. I think they're really important. It would be good if everybody could afford to get on that public transportation. And so these are great programs. So I thank you for that. I think we're done for this evening. Sarah, where are you?
That sounds
There
good
you
to
are.
me, unless anyone has any
Anything else?
urgent other business to address.
Urgent business? No, I don't
Urgent
think so.
business. Great.
So I'm going to adjourn the meeting and end the meeting and thank everybody for coming. And we'll see you at the next one. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everyone.
Great meeting.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.